What are we discussing on today's podcast, you ask? Well, we got to preview game one against the Brewers and talk about some stats that you need to know about the Brew Crew ahead of our series playoff matchup. And then why don't we check in on some preseason predictions that I made before the year got started and see what I got right and what I got wrong, all on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast.
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I'm Millard Thomas, host of this wonderful podcast. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer. So please go check out my website, MillardThomas24.myportfolio.com. On there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. If you want to see more content by me, just follow me on Twitter at CareerThomas24 for my personal account, or just look up Locked on Diamondbacks, both Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. And of course, thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free and available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. One of those platforms is YouTube, so please hit subscribe on the Locked on Diamondbacks YouTube channel. For segment number 3 today, we'll continue our conversation with Paul Sullivan. Please call him Sully, on the previews of potential series in the National League. Not potential series, we actually know what the series are now. So Sully and I will be breaking down D-backs versus Brewers and then Marlins versus Phillies in segment number 3. Segment number 2, I'll be checking in on the preseason predictions that I made before the season got started. But for segment number 1, I just want to do a little get to know the Brewers before our series against them and some stats to watch out for, and just talk about game one in general, because this Brewers team is a team that is battle tested, and it is one of the things I'm most concerned about for this D-backs team heading into this series against the Brewers, because on paper, the Brewers, as I've said before, are a team that doesn't scare me a ton. I look at that lineup, not exactly loaded after the Yelches and the William Contrerases of the world. Like, I don't think it's necessarily scary. Look at that rotation. Obviously, this Brewers team, I think they're number 1 in terms of pitching ERA in the National League. Best bullpen ERA. You got Burns, you got Peralta. Your bullpen's elite with the Devin Williams of the world. But the Burns, he's not having like an elite Corbin Burns season. He's still very good, but it's not elite Corbin Burns. Same with Freddie Peralta. So I think this team is vulnerable and susceptible and can be taken advantage of in a wild card round. But this team is also battle tested. They are, they do have a lot of playoff experience from 2018 to 2021. They went to the playoffs every single season. Now, they didn't make it last year, but they did win 86 games and were pretty close to making the postseason last year. So this Brewers team has been around the block in terms of being around the playoffs, being, gaining some playoff experience. Maybe they don't go far in the postseason, but at least they got some playoff wounds and some playoff scars. That's not something that this D-backs team really has. When you look up and down his D-backs roster, like, who do they currently have that is even really battle tested? Like the Morenos, the Zach Gallons, the Merrill Kellys, the McCarthys, the Thomases, the did I already say the Corbin Carrolls? Like, most of their best players just aren't that battle tested in the postseason. I think that's really where I'm the most concerned, is just the lack of experience for this D-backs team. But at least in terms of paper, at least in terms of talent on paper, I do think this team can match up with this Milwaukee Brewers. So let's talk about some things you need to know about the Brew Crew before we head into this postseason series, because there will be no Brandon Woodruff in this series against the Milwaukee Brewers. So if the D-backs can win at least one the first 2 games, of course, the game 3, there will probably be no Brandon Woodruff in that game 3. Really helps out the D-backs. Of course, Brandon Pfaadt is starting in game 1. I mean, for Pfaadt, all we really need is 4 or 5 innings, right? Just get us to the bullpen with no runs on the board. Get us 2 times through the lineup. I think we'll be pretty happy as D-backs fans. If Brandon Pfaadt can give us 4 or 5 strong innings, I think we'll take that. I mean, I want to keep Pfaadt. I want to keep Fott on the mound as long as possible. I don't know why I couldn't speak for a second. I want to keep Fott on the mound as long as possible until the wheels fall off. But once you see the first sign of struggling, as soon as he gives up that double in the 5th inning, it's probably time to pull him. I don't think he should have a long leash, but I want him to have at least that's as long as his spectacular performance. I mean, if he's through 5 innings, 1 hit, no earned runs, like let's throw him out there for a 6th inning. I think that would be smart. So want to get Fott ideally through 4 or 5 innings. But if you could go longer, I think we should do it. But first line of trouble, I think you pull Fott. Corbin Burnes starting game 1, 2 starts against the D-backs this season. First start, I think he went 8 innings, 0 earned runs. Second start, 5 innings pitched, 7 earned runs. So night and day for Fott. Was unhittable the first time against the D-backs. Got lit up the second time against the D-backs. So which Corbin Burnes will we see in this series? In his career, he has been good against the D-backs. 12 earned runs over 20 innings pitched as a 3.7 ERA. And considering that last start was 7 earned runs, like his last start was half of those earned runs. Like Corbin Burnes in his career has been pretty good against his D-back squad. One thing that is interesting about Corbin Burnes, he's someone that has pitched worse at home this year. He's someone that's pitched better on the road. 4.2 ERA at home compared to a 2.7 ERA on the road. So if the D-backs are going to get to a Corbin Burnes, let's make sure we do it at home, which Milwaukee's going to be. So it's going to be the D-backs' best opportunity to get Burnes at home in Milwaukee. And I actually want to check real quick to see if it matches up with the results that we've seen Corbin Burnes have against the D-backs this season. So when Burnes was at home against Arizona, he gave up 7 earned runs over 5 innings pitched. But when he was at Chase Field, 8 innings, 3 hits, no earned runs. So we even saw it with how he pitched against the D-backs. He looked like the best pitcher in baseball when he pitched at Chase Field. He looked like one of the worst pitchers in baseball when he had to pitch in Milwaukee. So hopefully the D-backs can take it to Corbin Burnes like they did once already this year in Corbin Burnes' house. Now, if Corbin Burnes can give you 6, 7 strong innings, it will be a major concern for this D-backs team because the Brewers have the best bullpen ERA in the National League, and it's going to be hard to make up ground once the starters come out because this D-backs team is, of course, the comeback kings in Major League Baseball, but it's going to be hard to come back against the best bullpen in the National League. This Brewers offense, like I said, the lineup doesn't really scare you. They are second in ground ball rate. They're also second in double plays. So this is a team that, yes, when they get runners on, they're actually pretty decent. They have a 270 average and a 790 OPS with runners in scoring position. So the Brewers are actually decent once they get runners in scoring position, but they don't always come through in those opportunities. Like it's very feast or famine with the Brewers. They're either going to hit a double or runner in scoring position and bring somebody home, or if there's 2 men on, they might just hit a double play and get you out of the inning. So very feast or famine with this Brewers offense. Now the offense is patient. They're pretty league average when it comes to strikeout rate, and they are they're third in the most walks drawn in the National League. So this Brewers offense is not afraid to be patient. They kind of have to. They kind of need to get those. They need to draw walks because they don't have a lot of offensive players that can exactly crush it at the plate. So they need to be patient. They have to wait for their pitches. They need to draw walks, and then they have to come through runners in scoring position. On offense, it's kind of like a cut by 1,000 knives or 1,000 cuts, like a slow death. I don't know the best way to say that phrase. It's kind of like 1,000 cuts, a slow death for this Brewers offense. They're not trying to be like the Bronx Bombers like back in the day, like just knock you out with 1 or 2 big blows. They're trying to just do little gut punches throughout the game. So D-backs need to be ready for that. But I do think this D-backs team, I think they're good enough on paper to take it to this Brewers team. I think the lack of experience could hurt the D-backs in this series. But if you could win game 1 and then have Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly in game 2 and game 3, I think it will set up perfectly for a chance for the D-backs to get redemption for their 2011 playoff series loss to the same Milwaukee Brewers. Now, I want to talk about some preseason predictions that may have gone right and some that may have gone wrong. But before we get there, if you want to buy D-backs playoff tickets, the best place to do it is Game Time, because Game Time is the place you want to be. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront, so you know exactly what you're getting at a great deal without hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the best place to find last-minute seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right. Let's get back into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Let's discuss some predictions that I had before the season started. Let's see what I got right and what I got wrong, because I made 8 bold predictions back in the preseason for how I thought this Diamondback season was going to go. Some of them I was either spot on or just missed the mark, and some of them I was, you can say, way off the base. So the first prediction I'm going to start off with is I said the D-backs were going to lead the National League in steals, and the D-backs weren't too far off. The Cincinnati Reds ended up finishing number 1 by a wide margin, 190 steals for the Cincinnati Reds. Shout out Cincinnati. But D-backs did finish number 2 by a wide margin. They had 166 stolen bases. Number 3 was the Philadelphia Phillies. So you can't say the D-backs were in a tier on their own, because I think Reds tier 1, D-backs tier 2, and then you can have a bunch of teams in that tier 3 from basically the Phillies to the Braves, because they're all kind of bunched up in terms of total steals. But D-backs clearly, I think, the second fastest team in the National League, one of the best, I think overall probably the best base stealing team, even though they finished second in steals, were elite at the extra base taken, elite with the run scoring percentage, just moving runners over, bunting for base hits. Like the D-backs could literally do everything in terms of chaos on the base pass. So D-backs finishing number 1 in steals. Didn't get that one right, but I was pretty darn close, and they finished number 2. How about this? D-backs finished with 80-plus wins. I hit that one on the head. I said successful season will be the D-backs finishing with a 500 record. I did not know about the postseason. I wasn't worried with the D-backs being a wildcard team. I just wanted the D-backs to finish with an 8 on their win-loss record and finish hopefully with a 500 record. D-backs did both of that. They ended up with 84 wins, and now that they're headed to the postseason, that really makes my prediction look even better. D-backs come through for me there. D-backs will finish with multiple rookies finishing in the top 5 of the Rookie of the Year voting before the season. Of course, everyone thought Corbin Carroll was going to finish in the top 5. He was the favorite for the NL Rookie of the Year. He's going to win the NL Rookie of the Year, so that one's going to hit. But I thought Dre Jameson and Ryan Nelson would be the other 2 guys. That didn't work out. I thought maybe a Brandon Pfaadt could sneak in. He has played a lot this season. He will not be there. D-backs have, of course, some other rookies with the Slade Kokonis, the Bryce Jarvises, the Jordan Lawlers, but no one has a large enough sample size or has taken over the baseball world by storm enough. D-backs will definitely have Corbin Carroll win Rookie of the Year, but they will have no other player finish top 5 in the Rookie of the Year voting. And the funny thing is, the Mets will have Kodai Senga in the top 5, and then the Reds or Dodgers, one of those 2 teams are going to have multiple rookies finishing in the top 5, because the Dodgers are going to have James Outman and Bobby Miller. I think Outman finishes ahead of Bobby Miller. Then the Reds are going to have McClain, Spencer Steer, and Ellie De La Cruz. So one of those 2 teams are going to have multiple rookies finishing in the top 5. And potentially a team like the Reds could have like 3 guys finishing in the top 5 for the Rookie of the Year voting. So I was way off on this one. It's really the Cincinnati Reds or the LA Dodgers that are going to see that prediction be actualized. How about this one? This one I hit spot on. I thought Ketel Marte was going to have an all-star level bounce back this season, reclaim his spot as one of the best second basemen in baseball, and all that's been true. Ketel Marte, as it currently stands with the season now over, 276 average, 844 OPS, 25 home runs, over 80 ribbies, near double-digit stolen bases, over 90 runs scored. Like, it was an all-star level season from Ketel Marte. Now, did he finish as an all-star this year? Did he make it to the all-star team? No. Was he robbed a little bit in that scenario? Yes, but this is someone with over 800 OPS, both at home and on the road. So this is someone who saw his stats travel. First half of the season, 857 OPS. Second half of the season, 826 OPS. This is someone that was consistent from start to finish. runners in scoring position, 275 average, 818 OPS. So pretty much the same guy with runners in scoring position. Great Marte bounce back season. Marte, we needed it. I don't think this team is in the postseason. I don't think this team is a wild card team if we get last year's Marte on this year's squad. I said Zach Gallen was going to win the Cy Young Award. Obviously, at one point this season, that looked like it was going to be a great prediction because at one point in the first half of the season, Zach Gallen was the Cy Young favorite. This guy started the MLB All-Star game this year. I think up until 7 starts ago, probably as August was starting, you could probably say Zach Gallen was the favorite on FanDuel to win the Cy Young Award. Then August on, I don't know what happened from Zach Gallen. He just started hitting the wall. He just started, every start was like 5 to 7 earned runs allowed. Had one complete game shutout mixed in between all that, but Zach Gallen just ended the season super weak, and he will not be winning the Cy Young Award, and I don't even think he will be finishing as a Cy Young finalist. If you actually go on Baseball Reference and look at the stats, Zach Gallen is not even number 1 on his team in ERA. Merrill Kelly, 3.29 ERA. He will get potentially more Cy Young votes than Zach Gallen, but I don't think it will happen. I think Zach Gallen will still finish top 6 in Cy Young voting this year. I said D-backs will finish with a league average bullpen because I said if the D-backs do finish with a league average bullpen, they will probably be a wild card team. And I actually said on our preseason podcast last year that the D-backs, that I would be happy if the D-backs just finished with the 18th ranked bullpen in Major League Baseball. And guess what? I looked at the bullpen ERA today for every Major League team. The D-backs literally finished 18th. I called it on a podcast a year ago. You could go back and check my 8 bold predictions for the D-backs season. Said the D-backs would finish 18th in bullpen ERA. They finished 18th in bullpen ERA, and now they're a wildcard team. Absolutely perfect prediction by me. I said Kyle Lewis redemption arc. Look out. Obviously, that didn't happen. Kyle Lewis got hurt at the beginning of the year, then has spent the entire season in AAA. He has crushed it for the Reno Aces, but Kyle Lewis will not be making an impact for the D-backs in the postseason. He has not made an impact for the D-backs in the regular season. The Kyle Lewis for Cooper Hummel trade, I said it was a fleece at the time. I mean, it's hard to say a guy who hasn't made an impact for the D-backs this season. It's hard to say that trade is still a fleece, but I still want to say D-backs definitely won that trade still. Maybe you can't say it's a fleece, but I still contend D-backs gave up a nothing player for a former Rookie of the Year winner that was only like 2 seasons removed. I think that's a win every single time because Cooper Hummel, like I said, ended up doing nothing for the Seattle Mariners. Then the last preseason prediction I had was the D-backs outfield was going to finish as the best defense in the National League. And you can definitely make the argument that they did that because this D-backs defense at the end of the season finished number 1 in ultimate zone rating and the Rangers stat. They were 4th in defensive runs saved and they were 7th in assists. When you just take a composite of all the major defensive stats in the National League, you can definitely say the D-backs outfield was the best defensive outfield in the National League. The Corey McCarrolls, the Alec Thomases, the McCarthys. I mean, really, if you're going to have Corey McCarroll and Alec Thomas in your outfield, you're probably going to have an elite defensive outfield. And then if you have a Tommy Pham out there, or a Jake McCarthy, or Lourdes Gurriel mixed in with those 2 guys, your defense is going to be pretty good. And the D-backs, I think, at the end of the season, had the best defensive outfield in all of Major League Baseball.